This is the wireless way, where mobility, IoT, and innovation drive real business outcomes. Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker. And as always, I'm so grateful that you're here. I know life is, and we're all busy, but to take time out to listen to this episode is probably some of the best time that you're going to have today. I got a great guest. As you know, I pride myself on trying to bring on great guests, and I'm grateful for Quint Boa. He's my guest today, and the universe just kind of brought us together on LinkedIn, of all places. A big shocker there. But a little bit about Quint before I bring him on. He's the founder and CEO of Cinema, a video and animation production company. The company started in 2000 and has grown from 2 people to 50. It's expanded from London to New York, LA, Amsterdam, and the Middle East, as well as China. The company works with 11 Fortune 500 companies. While the company is primarily focused on video and animation, it has become a keen advocate for the use of AI in the production process. And this has ethical, legal, social, and workflow challenges that come with it. From a personal perspective, Quint is also a UKCP, which is a qualified psychotherapist. He believes that we tell stories to ourselves and use stories through video to tell stories to one another. I'm a big fan of that concept. While Sima works in finance and tech, healthcare is the sector Quint is most interested in, especially mental health. To that end, he's an advocate for combining the falling cost of AI video production to diagnose, treat, and generate psych education content to support mental health initiatives. Yes, that's a mouthful, Quint, but man, thanks for sharing that information with us. There's a lot to unpack there. Man, thanks for being here today.
Oh, Chris, I really appreciate it. It's great to be on the show and great to meet you in person as well. It's fantastic. I'm a fan of the podcast, and it's really great to be here. There's so much to talk about. I can't wait to get
Yes. Yes, it's, to share a little behind the scenes, when I do these, and I know you're a podcaster too, we'll make sure we have a link to your podcast and your website in the show notes. But pre-show, before I hit record, man, we were laying down, well, I should say you were laying down some just really great nuggets. I said, whoa, let me hit record. We got to capture this. This is great stuff. So I'm very excited. People that listen to me know me personally know I get excited. I kind of got 2 speeds, right? I got fast and asleep, right? So I'm always trying. In fact, I'm quite impressed how slow I read that bio. I don't know if I felt like that was a nice controlled flow. Normally I'd like read them really fast. So again, yeah, thanks for being here. First question is always, what's not in the bio? Help us learn a little bit more about Quint and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, Chris, there were 2 tracks to my life. The first one was in the entertainment industry. So my father was a Canadian actor who came to London in the late 60s, and he was 6'4" tall. He was actually a coach for the Calgary Stampeders, and he came to London and at the time when the film industry was really taking off. So he was in Fawlty Towers, which is a UK show, and then Empire Strikes Back, Full Metal Jacket, Octopussy, and those films. If you wanted a CIA or a CIA operative or a military general, Bruce was the guy to go to. And so I started off in film and television, acting and doing voiceovers, and as an American. And then at the same time, I was working as training as a psychotherapist. And then I went onto the other side of the camera. I started working as a cameraman and working with a company called Technocrane. On light entertainment at the BBC. So I did a thing called Top of the Pops and the National Lottery, lots of music stuff, and then sports events. And then in year 2000, I set up Cinema, and we started shooting video for corporates when it was just possible to do. And that's when the internet actually got going in the year 2000 and computers could ingest video. But then I let the psychotherapy go, and then picked it up again around the time of COVID when I realized, hang on, as the Royal College of Psychiatrists have just said, we're in the middle of a second epidemic here of mental health issues with mobile phones and everything else. So my thinking now is we should use animation, and in particular artificial intelligence, AI animation, in order to put together content which diagnoses, treats, and provides psychoeducation for therapists and for people themselves. The essential idea is we all tell stories to ourselves. Our sense of self is created, co-created with our reality. So we tell stories to ourselves to identify who we are as characters, our behaviors, and we tell stories about our lives. And what we're doing with animation and video. In fact, the guy that started it was, with animation was this guy,
Yeah. Walt Disney.
and he used animation to start telling stories, and those stories stay in our culture. And so one day my prince will come, if you can just imagine, there are epic moments in film history, Bambi, for example, or Dumbo or Snow White or Jungle Book. These ideas, are narratives which stay with us culturally, and what Walt did and what I'm trying to do is use metaphor and symbolism to help in the treatment and diagnosis of mental health, which is possible to do, right? I mean, yeah,
Wow.
but it's still storytelling right the way through. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Well, something that I've learned over the years, I mean, I can even think back to being 18 years old in high school, and we were rehearsing for our graduation ceremony. And the principal was a great principal, God rest his soul, great man. But he had this 20-foot sign on paper on the back of the auditorium while we were rehearsing, and it read, "Think good thoughts and good things will happen." And I remember even 18 going, yeah, surely that's how it works. Come on. And at this point, I'm a child of a broken home and, a strange relationship with family. I mean, it was a tough time in my life. I felt like, so I had a hard time with that. But I got to tell you, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a go, and that was at 18. And, here I am at today at 56. And I got to tell you, there's something to it. And it's also led me to believe to the concept. I'd love to get your take on this, but I tell people, as much as I love technology, the brain is still probably the best supercomputer on the earth. And it's like any computer, it needs input. And if you're putting in trash, you're putting in bad thoughts and negative thoughts, that's the output, But if you're putting in positive thoughts and, hey, I'm capable and I can do this and I can get through this, then you're going to have positive outputs. I mean, is that oversimplifying it?
For me, I think that's absolutely true. I think, wow, that's a huge thing to unpack.
Take your time.
My thinking on it is that certainly to be optimistic is an act of rebellion. What do I mean by that? I mean that life is, I mean, if we look at sort of from a Buddhist perspective, life is old age, sickness, and death. There's enough going on in the world out there, and God knows enough going on as we're recording this, to be negative and flat about. I think if you can, not in a Panglossian sense, not just, oh, let's just tra-la-la-la-la, let's just, but if we look at everything clear-eyed and sober and go, I am still going to love my fellow man. I'm going to have compassion for other people. I'm going to be optimistic about things in the face of it, then I think that can breed that ripples out, and that creates a sense of community and a sense of kindred spirits in the people that you meet. I mean, that's the aspiration, right? How often I manage to get to that, But I think, does that chime with you?
It does. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about some comments we had pre-show of, first of all, these aren't new problems for mankind. And I'd love to get your take on it. Continuing that thought is, being a human today, being alive today, is it much different than being alive 1,000 years ago? I mean, surely we know they had different problems. I mean, they had a hard time, like what's for dinner and, no hot showers. I mean, they had a lot more problems that we can't even begin to fathom. But, I wonder if mental health issues were just as, prevalent then as now. I mean, because obviously we could argue, but we could talk about, our food supply having chemicals in them and, so many other things going on with our physical health impacting our mental health. What do you think about that from mental health issues today versus years, decades, and hundreds of years ago?
Well, I think there's, it's a very rich vein for discussion. I mean, here we are in the year 2026, and our lifespan now is probably in the late 70s, early 80s. Our health span goes a long way towards that. I mean, I think we can all hope or aspire to being healthy up until the age of 70. My mother passed away at 93. She was still going to the theater until 3 months before she died. So we're our lifespan is extended way past the sort of the expected lifespan of 30s and 40s. We've got all the things. Anesthetic, I think, was one of the things which we've got that we didn't have back in the day. We've got regular food supply. We've got all of these things. We're living in this hilarious bubble of everything we could want. We're all rich as lords, and yet we've got a mental health crisis. We've got severe problems with addiction, depression, trauma, and that's being played out with some of the dark underside of capitalism. For example, I mean, I think mobile phones are certainly getting a bad rap in the world at the moment for the things they're doing. And so some of the things that we're doing to ourselves as a result of late stage 21st century capitalism, without getting too, what we've forgotten is that we are apes, and the things that we want, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that security, stability, status, relationship, there are things which carry on from not just from 1,000 years ago, but from 100,000 years ago, and we still need those things. But what sometimes we're doing with society is we're isolating, and we're using technology, and that isolates us. Ironically, with mobile phones, for example, we're supposed to be more connected than ever, but we're more atomized than ever, and that's leading to some real problems with certain cohorts, children and young adults, for starters. So yes, I think, Chris, I agree with you broadly that we are struggling with the same things that Aristotle and Heraclitus and Marcus Aurelius all struggled with, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And the solution to some of those things are probably found in the philosophies of Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism and those spiritual religious philosophies that were around at that. Were we smart enough to sort of pick them up and study them? So, I was coming off as Alan Watts here, but
No, like you said, that's a very deep conversation that, how do you address that in a short podcast? You probably can't. I mean, go to his website and go listen to his Instagram. Yeah, your Instagram, right? Your Instagram page. You got a lot of good stuff on there. I'll have that in the show notes as well. You grew up in a family deeply connected to both the arts and psychology. How did that shape the path that you eventually took to where you are today?
We'll be right back.
Imagine the power of a single cell phone, just one small device destined for more than just calls. I'm talking about cell phones for soldiers. Your retired phone can be a lifeline for veterans and heroes truly in need. Since 2004, this remarkable nonprofit has transformed over 25 million donated phones into more than 450 million free minutes for service members and veterans, reconnecting them with the voices that mean the most. Your donation is kindness in action, reducing electronic waste and empowering those who served. Each device helps fund urgent communication, calling cards, and programs that rebuild connections, restore hope, and unlock new opportunities for veterans. Check the drawer. Your unused phone could make an extraordinary difference. Simply send it in or drop it off at one of the thousands of locations nationwide and give someone the chance to reach loved ones. Visit cellphonesforsoldiers.com today, because even a single device can spark life-changing connections for veterans all across the country. That's cellphonesforsoldiers.com.
Well, it set me off on the road of film and television. Certainly. I mean, that's where I started to work.
You kind of grew up around it, right?
Yeah, I know. I was immersed in it, and I knew my way around it too. When I knew how to get an agent, and it was a time when Margaret Thatcher was prime minister here, and she gave all these tax breaks to the film company. So everything was being made here in the 80s, and the place was awash with work. And I was putting on an American accent in order to try and get some of that work. So I was doing voiceovers and acting. I mean, I actually got nominated for a BAFTA at one point. Put on my fake American accent to do an advert, which suddenly was nominated for a BAFTA, which I lost because Robert Morley had passed away 3 months before, and they gave it to him. Sorry, Robert Morley. I mean, I don't mean that's because he died, he got it. I'm sure it was a great voiceover he did, but I could have used that BAFTA, and no difference to him.
Yeah, Quint, you can't just drop that and we move on. You surely you've been asked this before. Can we get a sample of that voiceover clip that you were nominated for? Can you give us a taste?
She swore there was a garden at the bottom of the ocean, and that night I found it.
That was pretty good. I noticed a change.
Impulse 1996. Impulse body spray. Free Spirit was the name of the thing. It's on YouTube, I think.
Oh
Right.
my goodness. I'll have to look it up.
But so I did that, and then film well into television with the BBC. That was great because I live in Kingston in London, and the BBC's in Shepherd's Bush, which is about a 30-minute cycle away, or a little bit longer in the car. So that was the epicenter of things like Top of the Pops and the National Lottery and Noel's House Party and TV shows and Newsnight and shows that were being produced. So it was a natural step for me to go into the actual production side of things. And that gave me the wherewithal to see, well, okay, if the internet's here, I can get a mini DV camera, I can get a computer, and we can start editing content and putting it out on this new thing called the internet, which, as you may remember, was a bit like CB radio. We never knew if it was going to take off or not. You know, of course, now look at it.
Yeah.
And that gave me the backbone technically to do it and to understand how that worked. And then that took me into field marketing and PR and into those brands that then led to me getting involved in finance, tech, and ultimately healthcare. After a few sort of bumps along the way, like, you know, the dot bomb and the financial crisis and Brexit, bloody Brexit nearly killed us. And then COVID, of course, right at the end there, a few years ago.
You know, speaking of COVID, I mean, that was the origin of your second pandemic, right? The follow-on issues from that period of time. Do you think we've recovered from that yet, or there's still indications of people struggling with
Yeah,
recovering from that time? I mean, I think about it because I'll still see someone driving in a car by themselves with a mask on. And I think, man, I wonder why are they doing that? Or I mean, I kind of get it. I travel a lot. You go to the airports, you know, there's a lot of germs around there, but you still see someone wearing a mask, and you got to wonder, man, is that even helping you? But if it makes you feel more comfortable and safe, go for it. It's not bothering me.
yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's a long tail certainly with the kids who had their education disrupted, and I think one of the things that happened with domestic life was that with booze, I think a lot of parents started to tuck into it a little bit too early in the day, and there was some dramatic
Hmm.
uptick in domestic abuse and the fallout, of course, was with the kids who became children of alcoholics. So I work quite closely with a charity called the National Association of Children of Alcoholics. And in fact, I've forgotten her name now. Who's the female ambassador in America for NACOA? Elle McPherson. So Elle McPherson's the representative in the United States for the charity. And there you can see on the charts, it really spiked around COVID. And that's, of course, got a long tail. There so yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think it has. I mean, certainly for us as a company, it knocked us for six. I remember very clearly standing in front of 25 people saying, "This is the last time we're going to be in a room together for about 2 months." We never got back together again ever. I mean,
Yeah, that was a tough time. Tough time. You know, another pivot here. I kind of want to get a few things out of the way, and I want to come back to mental health and whatnot. In 2000, when you founded cinema, you know, what was the motivation for that? What gap were you trying to fill?
I could see that it was possible to create video myself. And video for me is a great way to tell a story. And if the story you're telling is a commercial story for a brand, then it's the only way to tell it. And I mean, it seems funny now thinking about it. Of course, that's obviously just plain as the nose on your face now. But back then, it was, you know, the world of television and film was quite a mysterious place. You know, was it an art? It was an art. It was a business with advertising. But I thought this is an opportunity here. I mean, just pure and simple, it's an opportunity. And I went for it. And really, statistically, I should have fallen flat on my face. But it became a fairy story. One thing led to another, led to another. And even in the moments of crisis, like the financial crash, we were working with Bear Stearns, which was at the time the oldest bank in the world, which got bought by JP Morgan for $1. And we're still working with JP Morgan, 20 years later in London, in New York, and well, all over the world. So, and that led to us, going into the United States. So even when we had adversary, we somehow it worked. It kept going. It was and remains a fairy tale. What happened, and it's statistically very unlikely. And I'm blessed that it did. Yeah, so that's why I started it.
Yeah. And you wrote a book too. I want to hit on that. To Infinity and Beyond. You explore animation in healthcare slash mental health still, right? Is it mostly mental health or is it healthcare in general?
Oh, look, I mean, I just think that animation became possible commercially in 2013 when Adobe bought out After Effects, and suddenly our clients started asking for it. And normally, Chris, if I just do this, sorry if you're listening to this on the radio, but if I just ease myself into one side of the frame, this is called a look space, and what we do is we put up animated text up there. So like footfall to a supermarket or increased number of purchases. And that animated text was all we could do initially, but then we could get into animating logos, and then we could get into full bore animation around 2017, 2018. When somebody has a presenting problem of anger or anxiety or trauma or depression, or their cognitive bandwidth just reduces down, to put it broadly speaking. And so that is not the time to give them a pamphlet or to give them a book. It's the time to give them something that speaks to them. And what speaks to somebody is animation. Literally, it bypasses the prefrontal cortex and goes straight into the back of the brain. And people respond to it. Just look at any child looking at an animation. They're just totally seduced by it. And then after the fact, the ideas that were in the animation come to the fore, and you post hoc rationalize what you've just seen. And it's tremendously helpful, especially with presenting problems like trauma, where literally you are lost for words because of a situation or an object that's happened to you, and as you can't even articulate it to yourself, it just gets totally repressed, and so it comes out psychosomatically. Well, person to person, of course, is the goal, isn't it? Especially person to group is I think really therapeutic. But in this day and age, person to person, if you're going to get a therapist, at least in the UK, you're going to be looking at paying 80 to 100 quid. The waiting list is going to be probably 3 to 6 months, if not longer, if it's a government organization. Whereas an animation can talk to you straight away. It's totally free of charge. And the end slate on it can guide you to a support group, perhaps in your community, that you can benefit from immediately. With things like alcohol, for example. I mean, I'm a strong advocate for Alcoholics Anonymous, with or without the God aspect. I mean, you can have a humanistic approach to it, or you can have it's a spiritual belief, whether or not, whatever your relationship is to God, right? I think that AA is a fantastic group organization,
Absolutely.
but failing, well, as a multimodal approach, animation should be in the mix.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have stats or is there like research or follow-up showing the success rates of the animation, versus maybe patients that don't have animation? Is there any, is that, can you even capture that? I don't know how you capture that.
It's difficult, really difficult to do it. There's clinical observations and clinical advocates for it. I've got 3 to download videos on my Instagram. They've been downloaded 200,000 times. So that says something about the appetite for these videos. And really, I would love to, so on the subject of the evidence for it, clinical evidence, there's experience from individual therapists using, there's the appetite in the general public for it. But there's not much research to show the efficacy for using animation as opposed to, well, what? I mean, as opposed to a psychotherapist. Well, a psychotherapy success rate is, well, according to Freud, was one third get better, 1/3 don't change, 1/3 get worse. So it's probably just as that.
Thinking of tools like animation makes me think of another thing. I used to work for an employer, and it's the only employer I've known to do this, but they signed up with a company that sent all employees at random during the week, maybe once, twice, 3 times during the week, a text of affirmation, a text with, "Hey, we appreciate what you're doing. We know this is a difficult time." I mean, it originated, believe it or not, it kind of started during the COVID time when everybody was working remote. So the company took it upon themselves to go, you know what, this is going to cost us money, and there's no direct way to show we're going to make money from it other than our employees will be hopefully they'll be getting some affirmation, they'll be getting some positive reinforcement, they won't feel alone possibly. So yeah, you could argue that's a good work environment, which make a productive and happy employee. What other ways have you seen other ways that employers or other organizations are addressing mental health today?
Well, look, I mean, just to unpack that, just because you can't measure it in a traditional sense doesn't mean that it doesn't have an efficacy. I mean, we're so hung up on measurement, and I get it. I understand, SMART, the acronym, but something like what that company did, which sounds very progressive, yeah, it cost them dollars, but what did that actually mean to the staff? That they were being listened to, that they were being cared for, that someone gave a damn about, and they weren't just pieces on a chessboard or cogs in a machine. They were cared for enough for the company to reach out and inquire after them. It was all too rare. I think reached out to some companies during COVID, and I said, look, you know, you probably have got a number of your employees who've got a bottle of white wine behind the laptop when they're on Zooms at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and not one of them said, yes, we've identified that as maybe there's a problem. Now, I understand that they don't want to admit to it, statistically but I mean, 1 in 10 probably were. Those are the stats around it. So you can, and only one company, I don't want to name check them here, but only one company actually had resources available for people to reach out to talk to somebody anonymously within the company. And I think, Chris, part of that was because they didn't feel a fiduciary responsibility of duty of care that they should perhaps have, or maybe will have as time moves on. If you're working from home and you break your leg, whose responsibility is that? Is that the company's, or is that yours? And if you were drunk,
Sure.
sorry, if you were drunk, two cultures separated by a great language. If you were drunk and you broke your leg, well, who's that on? Is that on you, or is that on the company? You're on the
Okay, wait, I gotta stop you right there. So that's slang in London. If you were pissed, that's the same as saying you were drunk.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had not.
yeah,
I did not know that. So I learned something new. There. I'm gonna have to use that this weekend.
yeah.
That's
Well,
funny.
you just have to explain it straight away.
That's right. They're like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. I got distracted there. That's interesting.
I think it comes from Scottish. To go out on the pish is pish, pish is Scottish. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, that makes sense now. Thought I just lost it. I hate when I do that. Okay, we'll move on. So Quint, you've been working closely with AI in video production for some time now. What excites you most about its potential in the future?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's all right. So AI, a bit of background. I never thought AI was going to come for our industry. I thought it was going to come for the lawyers and for the accountants and for the people who use Excel sheets, not for creative people. Boy, was I ever wrong. I mean, Sora came out 3 years ago, and as one, the industry just went, "Oh my god!" And then Chat came out, GPT came out, and we are where we are. And the speed with which it attacked, I'm going to use that word actually, attacked the industry. Suddenly, everything was changing, and still is to this present day. We're in the middle of the Wild West, and we, for a long time as a production company, were putting up a rear guard action, saying, "Well, it's unethical. It's likely to be an IP infringement. There's a morality issue to this. It's never going to actually do it because of what we'll call uncanny valley. You're never going to be able to create an avatar that is human as human as a human being is." And one by one, these things have either been addressed or are being addressed. And eventually, it was last autumn, August, September, and I thought I just have to lean into this. I can't put up a rear guard action. And I basically got a nosebleed within the company, pulling the company into AI, leaning into AI. The animators were up in arms about it because rightly so, animation is a craft. And I didn't want to do a disservice to the animators, but we had to move with this because I have a duty of care to the staff and I have a responsibility to them. If we have to do this. So that's where we're at now. We are. I am pro AI, and I am trying to make AI as safe as I can to use. And I'm working with companies to ensure that their workflows are adjusted to ensure that they can harness AI for themselves. And At the same time, I've got one eye on the social and cultural ramifications of AI just with video production, which are going to be profound. And we can get into that if you want. But on a daily basis, videos are happening that have got very, very tricky elements to them.
So I'm excited, applaud the work you're doing of having, AI video production, especially animation around mental health and all. But let's talk about the other side of it. What worries you? We hear stories of, young people talking to ChatGPT about, their life problems and, should I kill myself? And there's been cases of, evidence suggesting that the young person killed themselves because the AI bot said, "Yeah, maybe you should do that. That's a
Yeah,
good idea. That's a solution."
yeah,
Or even maybe even not if not that extreme, you have not only young people, but probably adults creating, like romantic relationships with
yeah,
AI bots. I mean, that seems unhealthy. I mean, because I where's that going to go?
yeah.
What are your thoughts on things we should be worried about? And do you see a way out of it, or is it just the yin and the yang?
Oh no, I think it's an absolute. I think that we really have to wake up to what's going on um, before it seduces us. I mean, I'm a little off topic when talking about large language models and suicide. I can see how that can happen. I think the guardrails need to be implemented much harder than they are in order to stop that happening again. I think that it's still possible to jailbreak. You know that term jailbreak LLMs. I know it's possible to do it. Um, my concern more broadly is around trust, and we're very soon going to get into a situation where we can't trust who we're talking to, and whether that's in person, or sorry, on a video call, or audibly on a phone. Deep fakes are going to become indistinguishable from reality, and my concern is that in, for example, the febrile atmosphere that we're in at the moment. And there's an expression, I think Mark Twain had it, that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth's got time to put its trousers on. And I think that's where we are at the moment, or we're about to be. And I really have, it's quite chilling. With regard to psychotherapy, I'm an advocate. Well, whereas I'm an advocate for face-to-face psychotherapy, I think there's going to be a huge market for AI avatar therapists. 17% of people are using AI now as a therapist, which is the largest use of LLMs. Um, and we are a hop, skip, and a jump away from those large language models being in-person avatars. And that, I think, is going to happen. Now, the therapists say, well, it's all about the relationship. And they have a point, but the vast majority of people haven't got $100 an hour or more to spend. And the relationship a lot of the time is great, but a lot of it is also cognitive behavioral. So there's internal snags, traps, and dilemmas that people have that can be addressed using a CBT. It doesn't have to be, psychoanalysis.
Right.
I don't want to get into that. Well, we can get into the gritty of it.
Hey, why not? I mean, we got time.
Yeah. Well,
Much as you like.
Well, I mean, a lot of the presenting problems that people have is ways that they think about their lives, ways that they've been raised, and they become habitual in a person, and can be addressed using CBT. So you're looking at the way that somebody thinks about something, some of the ways that they self-sabotage, for example, some of the cultural expectations that they have. These can be addressed using CBT, and that can be addressed using a large language model. But there are other presenting problems such as trauma, which absolutely cannot be used using CBT. They have to be done using
And CBT stands for, remind me again?
cognitive behavioral therapy. So you're looking at the way that a person in a narrative with themselves and their narrative that they have with the world, which is co-created, right? I mean, it's how you see the world, it's how the world is going to react to you. It goes back to what you're on. If you have a positive sort of outlook, the world tends to respond in a bit more of a positive way. It seems to be. I mean, if you go through the life, let's cut to the chase. There are radiators and there are drains in the world, right? And for every 10 drains, there's probably one radiator. We all know who they are. That's who we want to spend time with. The radiators, the drains, well, not so much.
Right. That is interesting. Even in my life, I look around and I'm very grateful in spite of what I would call, challenges along the way. I mean, again, no one is going to get out of here without challenges. Some people have it a lot worse than I could ever imagine. I think I heard you or read somewhere like, someone's, worst day could be someone else's dream day, you know?
Yeah.
I agree with that concept. But, I look around and it does amaze me, we as humans, how some people seem to rise up really fast in the ranks of whether it be politics or business or society, but yet they seem, sometimes you can see why. And other times you scratch your head, you go, how did that person get to that level? They seem like an idiot or they can't even put a good sentence together. I mean, but clearly they saw themselves as being that person. Was it that simple? I don't know. It is pretty fascinating. You just think about our species and just how some folks, the best they can ever hope for is maybe emptying trash cans in an office building. But I believe, like, no, they could do so much more if they just believe they could do it, possibly, unless they have some kind of, physical or mental handicap. I guess that's the right way to put that. But anyway, I'm definitely going down a rabbit hole that I don't know if I can turn around on. But
Back
interesting.
to shirts. I think you're a radiator because of the shirt you're wearing, which for people who are listening to it on a podcast, driving on a freeway, is a beautiful uh, grey black shirt with some curlicues of white um,
They look like
patterns
maybe
on there.
flowers or, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, it's like
leaves
a
or something.
recherche test. You could look at that and imagine anything, but it's certainly an uplifting shirt, Chris. You're
Yeah,
wearing.
thank you, thank you. Well, I'll be honest with you. My philosophy, even with this show, is to motivate, educate, inspire, and I try to have every interaction I have with every person. I mean, my wife, 20, 30 years ago used to sell Mary Kay Cosmetics. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah,
Mary Kay, the pink bags, whatnot. But Mary Kay kind of made the makeup industry famous, I guess, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatnot. But she has a quote that everyone has a sign around their neck
go on.
that says,
Yeah,
you know,
I see.
help me feel. I want to feel special. Make me feel special. Help me feel special. Even if that's just a gentle smile and a nod when you're walking past a stranger. How hard is that? And I used to get mad when I was like, "Hey, good day," or "How you doing?" or "How's it going?" And the person, just ignores you stone cold. I mean, maybe they're in a deep thought. Maybe they're just having a bad day. I sometimes don't understand how hard is it to return a nice gesture. But again, some people are just in a bad headspace, we say.
Yeah, yeah. I think well, everybody likes to feel special.
Yeah, that shouldn't be surprising, right?
Well, look, we're all in the same boat, right? I mean, as Bugs Bunny said, none of us are going to get out of this alive. So we're
Yeah,
all in the same existential conundrum where
yeah.
every baby's born with a death sentence over their head, and they've just got to get through it and try and find the meaning and the purpose and the value where they can. So the human condition, the ontological human condition, is shared by all of us. So better to meet one another where we are personally and try and make their day that little bit brighter. Why not? I mean,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
what?
Well, I mean, even, I think the work you're doing, obviously, as a radiator, I mean, you're trying to add value to people's lives and help them through these times, right? I think some people just need to know there's a better way. So yeah, and two, I was going to say, I think, sometimes those people that you're trying to be nice to, is it possible they believe they're not worthy of someone being nice to them, so they don't want to receive it? I don't know if that's. I feel like that's sometimes I've run into people. I'm like, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to be nice to you, but you're just constantly no, 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 pushing,
Yeah.
they don't want the help. So I often was like, why would you want help? I'm just trying to help you or try to be nice to you. It's not that common, but
Yes.
it's out there.
This goes down to child development theory and relationship to parents. I mean, I mean, just talking about booze, you grow up as a child in a household where somebody's drinking and you become hyper vigilant, right? Because you don't know when dad comes through the door if you're going to get a hit or a hug, and you're being aware of their state very, very quickly tells you whether or not to go up, put your arms around him or scarp her and get the hell out of his way. And that hypervigilance comes through in life, and you end up being hypervigilant at all times because you know that if you drop that hypervigilance, that's when something bad might happen. And so your guard is up. And that leads to anxiety in later life where you're going to be anxious, even though there's nothing to be anxious about. But you are so habitually conditioned to do it neurologically, and this is found to be the case. Your what wires together fires together neurologically, and you can't stop that habitual pattern of being anxious. And that's a so what you're saying is in a similar thing, some sort of an impossible to make broad brush statements around this. But if you go
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
attachment theory, you probably find some place where they were made to feel unworthy, and that feeling of unworthiness is more comfortable than feeling that actually I can do this, I can get myself out of it. Very complex, obviously.
Yes, taking it to a lighter topic maybe.
Yeah.
I know we're coming close to maybe to the end of our time here, but kind of an odd question has popped in my head as we were talking. In your business life, you're running this company and you're running a business. Do you find having your background of I mean, do you find are you constantly always evaluating people you're doing? But does that help you in business when negotiations and leading people? Do you find does that background of a psychotherapist kind of help you with your interactions with your colleagues and employees and team members and business people?
Well, I don't know, because there isn't sort of a version of me that hasn't got that background. I've only
Right, that's true. You can't compare it to something.
yeah, I can't
Are
compare.
you doing it? Are you constantly psychoanalyzing people when you meet them, or
Well, I mean, a bit like an architect, I suppose. If an architect wanders around and looks at houses, I'm walking around looking at what perhaps the foundations are of that person's character and their behavior. And yeah, I mean, but it, look, Chris, honestly, it's only a question worth asking to me is what makes somebody who they are, and what are the values and the principles and the character that they are and what they live by. And that's a source of endless fascination for me.
yeah,
And it's not, I don't go around judging people or that they are who they are, but it's wonderful to see how different people have arrived at the people that they are, and how they've chosen to navigate their life, how they design their lives for themselves, and how happy they are in that space. Those are the only questions. I mean, for me, right? I don't know for everybody else, but for me, that's the only questions. I'm endlessly fascinated by it.
no, that is, I agree with you that I was just thinking, let's be honest. I think even if you don't have a psychotherapist background, we're probably always, if you're smart, we're sizing up threats. Like,
Exactly.
are you a friend? Are you a foe? Can I trust you? Can I work with you? And that's probably happened subconsciously at some level. I think. I mean, it should be. I hope. I mean, if you're aware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're hypersocial animals, and our brains are prediction machines, and we're constantly squaring up to who we're dealing with, and assessing them, and trusting them.
I wanna go back to a comment earlier a few minutes ago around, AI and how the outputs, can influence us and all that. And, one of my fears is, are we gonna lose the ability to have analytical thinking? To be able, I mean, because if I tell you, "Hey, man, that football team's the best," and you're like, "Man, you kidding me? No, my team's better than you." I mean, we can debate and argue, but if ChatGPT or some LLM just says, "Here's the output," I mean, like, I see it all the time. People are like, "Oh, but this is what it says." I'm
Yeah,
like, "Well, can we challenge that? Can we question it?" Of course we can, but it seems like a lot of people don't. They just take it for face value, whatever spits out. And I think the answer could be challenging each other to be more analytical thinking,
yeah.
challenge it, question it, understand what source data is pulling from. And that requires a little extra effort. Not everyone seems to want to do that.
Well, look, I mean, this is what learning is, right? Rebecca Winthrop. So there's an American education. It's called Rebecca Winthrop, who I mean, the word cognitive offloading is in our culture now. We just offload. I can't work it out. I'll ask ChatGPT, just like we used to say, I'll Google it. But now she's using the word cognitive stunting. And cognitive stunting, she's saying that ever since digital equipment has been brought into the classroom, kids are getting stupider because they are not having an analytic thinking. And what is thinking if it's not a friction? It's you have to think. I'll give you an example, right? I drive my daughter to work. She works with neurodivergent people in a place just up the road from here, and some of her shifts start at 7 o'clock. So I may as well drive her because it's two buses otherwise. And because I'm taking an interest in the work she does, I record some of our conversations. And then she said to me the other day, she said, "Dad, don't record this conversation." I said, "Why not?" She said, "You're never going to remember it." Why not? Because you're not thinking, you're recording it. And as we said earlier on, what wires together. You're not thinking about it. You're not using that muscle to think and to process, critically analyze, to remember it to use that information with other bits of information. You know, that's what learning is. It's hard. And if you're just outsourcing that to an LLM, well, you're not going to develop the critical faculties that you need to have a discussion about who's got the best football player or the best soccer team, and to be able to discuss that in a discuss critical way.
Yeah. Another question, unrelated. I noticed on your website I don't know how often you update it, but 47 podcasts you've been on. I
Yes.
gotta know. I mean, what's the driving force? I mean, what's your motivation to be on, as many podcasts as possible? And again, I'm honored to be one of them, by the way. So, yeah, I'm just curious to know what is this just part of your marketing strategy or
Well,
what's your thought?
look, I like you said at the top of the podcast, I've worked with, well, 11, currently work with 11 Fortune 500 companies. All right. I know those companies are using animation and video and most recently AI in order to communicate really complex ideas in creative and relatable ways. And then the next thing I do is I go and work with a charity, I'll go to an AA group, and I'll hear there's nothing more complex than a presenting problem around anger or trauma or an eating disorder or anxiety. And it's complex both because of the problem that a person has, is suffering from, but also because they don't have the cognitive bandwidth to deal with it because it is overwhelming. And when you start throwing into the mix neurodivergent people, this is a cultural problem that we've got. And we've got the skills to do it if only healthcare would wake up to it and start investing in animation and investing um, in particular in AI in order to address these issues. And I honestly, I feel like I'm screaming into a void here. I could go and get another uh, three or four, Fortune 500 companies and do some more corporate videos for them. But where my heart is in trying to shake NGOs and charities to say, look, don't you realize this is an opportunity here that you can take a relatively small budget, you can create, or governments for that matter, you can create these animations, you can put them into any language you want, you can edit them into 50 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you can disperse them all over the world via social media, which is free to air. We don't have to go to madmen of Madison Avenue or J. Walter Thompsonville. It's free to put out there. You can have peer-reviewed animations, like and really make a difference to the world. And
Mm.
and really, I mean, if we just take ADHD, for example, I mean, one quarter of ADHD is undiagnosed. Our prisons are full, and I know in the United States, because I work in the United States as well, one quarter of our prison population, if not more, is undiagnosed ADHD. So those are people who've got ADHD who are using substances in order to self-medicate and then getting in trouble with the law and then ending up incarcerated, costing a fortune. And
Wow.
that can all stop overnight if we just have the wherewithal to look at this. I'm sorry, I'm getting evangelistic on that. But
No, that's fascinating thought. I mean, I never looked at it that way. So I learned another thing. That's pretty fascinating. I agree. That makes sense.
we can make a material difference to our culture relatively inexpensively just by using animation, I believe. And that's why I'm going on to podcasts to try and get those ideas out there because, so I feel like I'm putting something back basically without getting
Yeah.
too
Well,
woo woo about it.
creating awareness, creating awareness. I'm a big believer in that too. If you have a good idea, if you know what works, why it works well, why would you keep it to yourself? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So I get that.
And it's rippling
So
out and it's connecting with you, and then maybe it's connecting with some listeners, and maybe
that's right.
somebody's got an idea, and please get in touch if you have on how better to get this out.
Yes. Check the show notes. There'll be some great links in the show notes. But it's about that time to land the plane.
Oh, God, really? So quick?
It did it feel like it? No,
Yes.
it's a funny story. Another charity I'm a big fan of is American Red Cross, and
Yeah,
I just had a reminder pop up. I'm supposed to donate blood in 30 minutes.
perfect. Okay.
So trust me, I'm not blowing you off. Just know I'm blowing you off to go donate blood to save someone's life. So it's for a good reason.
Well, that's force
And
majeure.
it's my neighborhood at our community clubhouse. Fortunately, it's only 2-3 blocks away, so I don't know how far to go. Um, I you know what? Quint, we can always do a part 2. I feel like there's always another this is not one and done, we're just beginning.
I'm well up for that.
But speaking of that, I mean, go that landed the plane, approach, last words, the next, give it another 5, 10 minutes needed, but is there anything we left out? Anything you wanna leave us with we haven't talked about yet?
No, 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 there is nothing that I want to say. Just if you can be a tomorrow, try and be a radiator, not a drain, everybody.
There we go, that's a good last word, don't be a drain, be a radiator. A radiator, you mean giving off warmth? I mean, how would you define that?
Why don't we, to borrow from you, Chris, why don't we just imagine everybody we meet tomorrow, or 1 in 5 people we meet tomorrow has got a sign around their neck saying, please, can you make me feel special? Because they're having
There
a
we
rough
go,
day. And having a smile and an honest conversation, just like
can
we've
go
had
along.
today, would lighten their day, lighten their load.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. If just one of, even 50% of you listening could make a personal challenge to yourself to help someone else feel special, even, and by the way, here's the benefit. If you wonder why would you do that? I believe there's something psychological happens when you give away good comes back to you, right? It feels good to be nice to someone
Yeah.
expecting nothing. You're not being nice because you're hoping they're going to give you something or, just be nice. Just be a good human being. And I think that's medicine in itself, too. I love a good joke. I love hot comedy. I think laughing is a good medicine. I love anything that makes me laugh. There's a corny show on TV. It's been around for, I think, 40 years. America's Funniest Home Videos. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever heard of it. It's had numerous different, hosts, but AFV. And actually, my 5-year-old granddaughter, she always somehow or another, fortunately, she's learned about YouTube and our iPad, and she can watch, like, Barbie doll videos and all, and so she's addicted to that. Going back to and I'm like, "No, you can't watch that. Hey, I got an idea. Let's sit down together and watch America's Funniest Home Videos where they show these clips, and we laugh together about it. It's funny. It's much different approach, and she's pretty happy with it.
Did you hear what you just said? Oh, and we sit down together and
Yes.
sit down together. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes. So now she knows.
I sit next door. I'm eating. Let's sit down together. That's great.
Yeah, and we laugh and we talk about it, and of course, it shows like it's a show about people taking home videos of like people tripping and falling, and hanging up a Christmas tree and it falls. There's all these silly things that happen in life, and even at 5 years old, I'm embarrassed to share this story. This is a funny story. So there was one clip in America's Funniest Home Videos about people pulling in their driveway and they get out of their car to check their mail, or they're getting out of the car to move something, but they don't put it in park. So the car starts naturally, slowly rolling away. Well, probably a month ago, that happened to me, and thank goodness I noticed it. I mean, it literally rolled 2 feet, if that. But my granddaughter was on the front porch watching me, and I think I was getting out to move a bicycle in the driveway. But I got out, and she starts laughing, and I'm like, God, that was close. She goes, Pawpaw, just like on AFV. So she remembered seeing the video about that, and yeah, that was a moment we shared. So we kind of had a laugh about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
It's great.
As I'm trying to land the plane, I tell a whole other story. That's just who I am.
Great. A great story to tell. Leave in the show, definitely.
Yes. Well, Quint, thank you so much for challenging us to help others feel special. Please check the show notes, guys, for his website, his Instagram handle to check out his material. Some great videos in there. In fact, there's a couple in there. You know why that 200,000 download? Because you watch them, you go, I know someone that could really benefit from that. I'm going to share that with
Well,
them.
they're
Yeah, I
free to
hope this
download.
helps them.
They're free to download. Download them and ping them about. Same from the Instagram site. They're all free. So and also
Yes.
for any feedback on, please tell me how I can make them better.
Yes, will do, my friend. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Chris. It was really, really great fun. Lovely
It
talking to
was
you.
great
Let's do it
fun.
again.
Yes, I'm very open to that. And there you go, folks. Another episode of The Wireless Way. And as we've already suggested, the way I generally end every episode, if you heard something that made you think about a friend, a colleague, a family member, please share this episode with them. I'd appreciate that. I think they will get something out of that, obviously. So thank you for listening today. And you can always reach me or contact me through www. Who still says that anymore? But I don't know what I just did it. You guys get it. Go to my website, thewirelessway.net, thewirelessway.net. There's a contact us button, and it will go to me and my team of me, myself, and I. So again, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Wireless Way.
Brilliant, Chris. Well done. Studies show that attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, commonly known as ADHD, can affect a person's thinking, feelings, and behavior, and makes it very difficult to pay attention. They are also easily distractible, fidgety, and have busy and hyperactive minds. Difficulties with concentration make it harder for them to communicate effectively. All of this frustration can create outbursts and destructive behavior. Because people with ADHD often can act without thinking, they are more likely to get into tricky situations and have other issues like trouble sleeping. Therefore, diagnosis of ADHD is very important to understand these behaviors. Correct medications for ADHD can make a big difference for some people. Behavioral strategies can also be helpful. For example, people with ADHD benefit from outdoor activities. While ADHD is a lifelong condition, it can be effectively managed, but is too often overlooked. Diagnosis, appropriate interventions, and support can lead to a more content and fulfilled life. Speak to your health professionals for more information.
I'm scared. Just be really still and quiet. I hope they don't come up here. What should I do?
You don't have to face it alone. 1 in 5 children in the UK are affected by a parent's drinking. You're never alone. Nakoa is here to listen anytime, any day.
Every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs blood for surgeries, cancer treatment, chronic illness, and traumatic injuries. Yet, only 3% of eligible Americans donate each year, leaving hospitals struggling to keep enough blood on the shelves. One blood donation can save up to 3 lives. With your help, we can make sure life-saving blood is ready before it's needed. If you're healthy and able, please roll up a sleeve and donate. Visit redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS to find a drive or donation center near you. Donate blood saves lives. It's easy, safe, and one of the most generous things you can do.